everyone, my name is Emily Perry, and I'm the Associate Director of Professional Development and Networking with Penn Engineering. And today I'm talking all about ways that you can communicate your strengths and skills to employers. I'm going to go ahead and dive right in, but just a few things. First of all, I am recording this session, so by tomorrow I'll have this shared on the MCIT Online playlist, and then in the shared Google Doc for all engineering master students so that you have access to it. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to send them in the chat. I'm going to get to them at the end, and while we'll try and go through this so that I can answer individual questions along the way. At times, my PowerPoint will take up the entire screen, so I'll hide my little thumbnail so that you can see a whole visual, and then I'll go back and forth throughout. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is a really important thing that everyone needs to know about, right? How do you communicate your strengths and skills to employers? So here's what we're going to run through today. Number one, we're going to talk about how to conduct a personal skills assessment. If you're an integrated product design student, I did a session like this very similar to that major, to that degree program. So sorry if that's a little bit of a repeat, but it's a good exercise. So we're just going to do it again. Then we're going to talk about how you can start to group and order your skills from this major brainstorm and start to tailor different stories to different companies, to different job types and things like that. Finally, we're going to figure out how you actually start to apply everything that you discover about yourself into the right formats. So what should be on your resume versus what should be on your cover letter or your LinkedIn. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about how you create a blueprint for pitching yourself and your profile to someone in a conversation. So whether that's in an interview setting, at a networking event, at a virtual networking event, how do you start to communicate all those things to an employer? So let's discuss your personal skills assessment. So really what I'm trying to get everyone to do is figure out what skills do you want to draw from and what stories do you want to tell to employers so that you are putting your best foot forward. So in general, what I say is like get a whiteboard out or some post-its. Consultants love using like post-its in different brainstorming activities. Paper and markers, a Word doc. If you're image driven, you can draw things or make a vision board. Whatever it is, you just want to get something down so that you can brainstorm these ideas about yourself and try and figure out what skills do I have and what experiences did I have that helped me build on those skills. So when you're doing this reflection and when you are allowing this brainstorm to be recorded in some way, here are some things that you can draw from. First of all, your coursework. So look through your syllabus, look through old assignments, remember old projects, open up old tests, right? Whatever it is, try and figure out what you were actually doing in class and what skills you were learning. Many times in a syllabus, they'll review everything that you're supposed to learn or the learning outcomes of that class. Use that to draw and help jog your memory about your skills. If you have worked on personal side projects where you were teaching yourself things, this is relevant. If you had past jobs or are currently working or a past internship, maybe if you had a past job that isn't in the field that you want to go into, you're still gaining really, really relevant transferable skills. If you are in a job that is in the industry and field that you're intending to stay in, think about all the things that you did there and all the skills that you have accomplished. You can always think back to undergrad, any extracurricular activities that you might be involved in, competitions, things like that. Let your mind travel through your past and your lifetime and your professional and student academic experiences and get everything out there. Think of all the skills that you might be able to draw from. Here are just some examples, right? We want to be recording both hard and soft skills. So if there's a certain programming language that you know, or a certain type of way that you know how to work with hardware, get all of that down. That is so relevant for all of our engineering master students. It is the thing that allows you to be credentialed in order to get a position. However, you also want to make sure that you are recording your soft skills, mainly because these are things that are harder for employers to measure. So they can't give you a coding test on whether or not you can write well. And they're not going to give you a writing test because that would be a waste of their resources for what they're trying to hire. However, they still want you to be able to write well. So make sure that you sort of give your mind the space to get all this out and down. And then we're going to move into figuring out what to do with all this information once you've done this exploration. Another important thing to consider are standout experiences, because once you have all these skills, employers want to know, how did you actually gain them, or what proof can you show me that you possess these abilities? And you do that by giving examples of experiences. So, have you ever led a team? Can you point to a moment where you've increased efficiency or saved someone money or reduced waste? Have you ever created something new? And also, sometimes it doesn't have to work. So sometimes students, like in their undergrad, had maybe worked on like an app or something, and at the end nothing was working, but you got really close, or you taught yourself a new skill in that experience. Great, that's still important. If you've created something, we want to know about it, and you want to reflect on that experience. Have you established a process or procedure? In all jobs, you're going to have to showcase how you got from point A to point B. And at times, you might have to tell someone how you got from point A to point B and then lead them to getting to point C. Processes, organization, all of these things are attributes that every employer is looking for. Have you trained someone or taught or tutored an individual or a group? Again, in no matter what role you're looking for, these are skill sets that are highly desirable. Have you done testing on things? And if so, what did your testing actually look like? Maybe did you come up with a process for your testing, or did you use any unique methods in that experience? Or have you done modeling and prototyping? Or have you won an award or competed in a challenge? All of these are potential standout experiences that you can be reflecting on to help you, again, think about your own profile. What skills do you have? What experiences do you have? So, what we do is we have all of our skills and experiences. Maybe you have a crazy post it wall right now, or you have a beautifully bulleted list, whatever type of person you are. Take this information about yourself. And what we want to do is figure out how we can overlay that with different job requirements. So, I'm going to give you an idea about how you can do that now. First of all, you can just do a close reading of job descriptions. So, one exercise that I like to do is find 10 job postings with the same job title. Copy and paste the job requirements within that listing into a document. Like it could be a Word doc, Google Doc, whatever. There are different websites online that are free word cloud generators that you can input a list of words into, and then it will showcase the top words for what you've input. So I'm going to skip this. I'll come back to it. This is an example word cloud that I took from 10 different jobs that were full stack developers. Here are the things that came out and stood out the most. So then what you want to ask yourself is, okay, awesome. Based on the needs of these jobs and my close reading of job descriptions, am I showcasing the skill sets that are the most important to these employers and these organizations? If you don't want to do the whole word cloud exercise, other resources have done this for you. So Dice is a great website for anyone looking for tech careers. They have taken and basically scanned all of these different job positions and their descriptions in their postings, and they've basically done what I did with the word cloud on a massive scale to give you the top skills that people are looking for in position X. The Balance also has sample template job postings where you can type in a job title and it will give you the samples of the top most desirable skills for this job type. And then ONET is a government-run organization. So sometimes it's run through the Department of Labor. Sometimes they don't have the most up-to-date information or the most up-to-date job titles, but it is very important and it gives very good information because these are basically US government standards of what different jobs require in order to be able to be classified as that job type. So just some resources. There's also a ton of other just like random blogs and things online where you can start to establish, based on the job types that I'm interested in, what are the top skills for that position? And then how do I start to tell an employer about those skills specifically? Word cloud. Okay. So what this looks like is you have taken your brainstorm of all the skills that you have. You've thought a little bit about all of the experiences that you have that are highlights for your professional and academic experiences. And then you have started to look at job titles and figured out what are the skills that these different job titles have. Those are sort of the three pillars that you're working with. So step one, think about all the skills and keywords that are listed in a particular job description and group them by that job type. Then number two, you look at your own experiences and skills and you start to order and cluster those things based on the matching. And then finally, you repeat this between different job types. So just because you are a computer science major doesn't mean the only job type that you're applying for is software engineer. You might be applying for a data science role or a product management role, and all of those job types are very different. However, you have had so many different experiences that you can talk about different skills in a way that you can match into any of these roles. I hope this makes sense. So this is just how you come up with a blanket understanding of your skills, the skills that employers are looking for, and then you match the two. So next we're going to talk about how do you actually tailor your profile. So how do you make it clear to a certain employer that these are your intentions? When you think about all the documents that you need to submit when applying for roles, you think of cover letter, resume, portfolio maybe, or a website, and then your LinkedIn. The way I'd order these things is from specific to broad. And I'm going to go through all four of these application materials and how you should start to target and tailor each piece so that you are telling the right story to an employer. In your cover letter, you always start with an introduction, like an introductory paragraph. And in that introductory paragraph, you explain why is this the role that you're looking for. Then the next 2, 3, or 4 paragraphs are all themed around a specific part of the job description that you feel like you possess and can communicate perfectly to the employer. So what you do is you look at the job description and you see, okay, they have like these 8 things listed. You choose 2 or 3 bullet points, and then you make those things the theme for your body paragraphs of your cover letter, and you talk about how you possess those things. I did a cover letter session. I did a whole webinar on cover letters. So if you're having trouble writing this document, feel free to check that out. And then similarly, Career Services and myself will look at any drafts that you have coming up with. And then finally, your conclusion is reiterating your interest in the role or organization. Like that previous slide showed, your cover letter is your most targeted part of your application. You are being as upfront about the skills that you have and marrying yourself to one particular position. Do not write one version of a cover letter and submit it to many different employers. That is a waste of a cover letter, and it's a waste of your application. Some students will ask me, do employers look at cover letters? And it's funny because sometimes employers will say, no, I don't bother. I'm a risk adverse person. So if I'm applying for a job and I really want it, and there's an opportunity to input a cover letter or any additional documents, I always include a cover letter, because why not tell a story and match my skills and experiences perfectly to the job I'm applying for? People feel like cover letter writing is a slog and it's annoying, but once you do it a few times, it'll feel a little bit more natural. And I think it still gives you an edge in the application process. So next we're going to talk about resume. There are certain things that you can do in a resume to really help tailor your skills and experiences to an employer. First thing, a career objective or a summary. Usually at the top, this is like the first section of your resume, and you're giving someone an idea about why it is, who you are as a candidate and why you're applying to a certain role. I say that this is an optional section, and that is because a ton of students and people, a ton of individuals, not even just students, really write bad objectives and really write bad summaries. So if you are not confident in your ability to write a good objective and you haven't had a chance for anyone to look at it and give you feedback, don't put it on there. Really what you're wanting to do is tailor your skills and your experiences to a specific organization, and your summary gives you the best chance of doing that. Two other things. If you're applying to a job and your skills and experiences make perfect sense as to why you are applying to this role. So if you had a mechanical engineering undergrad and you're pursuing your master's in mechanical engineering and you're applying to be a mechanical engineer, you don't need an objective. Like, we get it. We understand why you're applying to this role. However, if you're career changing, so if you worked as in finance and you're applying, you're now pursuing your master's in computer science or computer information technology, a objective or summary is a great way to sort of describe why your past isn't really matching up with your most recent future. So objectives are very helpful if you can do them well. So if you feel like you would like to utilize that version of your resume, make sure you get someone to look it over. And I think that they're very valuable. Second, your skills section. Perfect place where in a job description, they say, here are the required skills. And then you make sure that your skills are somewhere on your resume and that you can possess and have that part of your resume highlighted. I recommend that we all move our skills sections up on our resumes. So for many of you, if you are applying for roles and your master's program is a really important part of who you are as a candidate at this point in time, your education section can be first, but then right under there, move your skills up, make sure that all of your technical skills are listed and right there for the employer to check off. Secondly, or thirdly, you can always change the order of your section headings. When thinking about your resume, the real estate near the top of the document is the most valuable. So you always want to make sure that you are including things that are relevant to the roles that you're applying for near the top of your resume. For most students that I work with, I have found that the best order of their section headings is skills, project, experience, and leadership. For many of you who have had different roles in your lives, in your experience section, you can create two sections of relevant experience and other experience. Many times students who may have had a gap in their work experience, or maybe you already did a career change and you're moving forward in one thing, the relevant career experiences is everything that you're doing now that applies to the job that you're applying for. And the other career experiences is sometimes showcasing transferable skills or helping understand like a potential gap in your resume. Those are sort of ways that you can manipulate your section headings. Within a project section or an experience section, one thing that you can do is always manipulate what you're highlighting within each role. So if you were, again, I keep on using this example, if you worked in finance, but you were in charge of helping a technical team implement a new procedure for your team, and you're now trying to get into technology, that experience of, which might have been a small project within a job, is all of a sudden so important. We want that to be the first thing that you're talking about because you're showcasing your technical skills within a finance experience. And then similarly, just always know that you can rearrange the bullets within your resume depending on what job type you're applying for. And you can always highlight different parts of those jobs to match up with a specific role. Next, I have tell you this portfolio, but I also mean if you have a personal website as well. Three things that you consider. Number one is your folders and organization of your website. Just make sure that you are categorizing things properly and you are naming your variables well. Those are two things that are important for many folks in engineering. Like, can you communicate your technical skills to someone else? Similarly, if you can describe technology, methodology, anything like that within the things that you are sharing online or in an online presence, this is a great way to showcase strong writing skills. So that thing that employers want to know that you have, but they don't really know how to assess very well in your interview process. If you have beautiful descriptions in a website, that's always really helpful. And then finally, learning outcomes. So if you're showcasing a project, talking about your process and then what you learned, if you were partnering with anyone or collaborating with a team, making sure that you have those soft skills as well. And then finally, your LinkedIn. So this is the most public facing thing in addition to your website that might help you. I'm going to hide my thumbnail for a second here so that everyone can see the screen fully. So your summary on your LinkedIn can be more descriptive than a resume objective. You can add things like your values and types of work that interest you. You could just be a little bit more inclusive in your LinkedIn summary. Then you can also allow your LinkedIn to be a repository for your professional experiences. So I get the question a lot of what should go on my resume versus my LinkedIn. My answer is you can have more on your LinkedIn. It can be a repository where you can really have a nice log of your professional experiences. For my career changers out there, your past is not irrelevant. Please make sure that you put past roles on there. And then when students say, should I keep this job up? I err on the side of, yes, definitely, sure, feel free to add that. But the two questions that I ask are, does it show a relevant skill or experience, whether that's transferable or direct? And then is it unique? If it does those two things, then yes, definitely add it on there. But I don't need to know that you were a waitress in high school, or I don't need to know that you were a dog walker part-time throughout college. Those things can start to leave your LinkedIn account. And then always make sure that you utilize the descriptions part of your experience section in your LinkedIn. Make sure that you're describing your experiences. That's another way to really create targeted content, fill your website with more key terms that are relevant to recruiters. And then finally, make sure that you are including an exhaustive skills list. So LinkedIn allows you to include a ton of skills. Make sure you are including them, because recruiters who use LinkedIn to do candidate searches will search by these keywords. So you just want to make sure that you have these skills on your LinkedIn ready to go and that they are getting you through search filters from recruiters. I'm going to put my thumbnail back. Hi, I'm back. Okay. I am going to check the chat really quick. Can you share examples of career objectives in resumes? Jimmy, solid question. Yes, at the end of this, I will share with everyone the resume bank for C's students. And then within those, you can look through resumes and their objectives. Okay, so now we're going to talk about constructing a personal pitch. This is key to being able to communicate your skills. So quick review, start by doing a giant brainstorm of your skills and your experiences. Then you have to get to know job types that you're interested in and what the required skills are for those job types. Then you start to take the skills that you have and are learning, and you input all of those things into your relevant application materials. So you're just making sure that the skills that the employers are needing are infused throughout your candidate materials. Finally, we're assuming, oh my gosh, yeah, you might be getting an interview and you need to be able to communicate these parts of yourself to the employer and the recruiter. How do we do that? So some questions that you might get throughout different settings. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your goals. Why are you interested in this company? Why are you applying to this position? We need to have answers to these things. And here are all the ways that people might be asking you. And here are all the settings where you might be having these questions asked of you. Definitely an interview, in a virtual networking event, if you attend a professional conference, if you are doing an informational interview. Not only are you gathering information from an individual, but you want to make sure that you're prepared to share about yourself and your goals and your experiences. If employers are coming and doing a workshop at Penn, or they're hosting an event, if you get the chance to talk about yourself, you should do that. And then finally, I mentioned meeting with an advisor or professor. So if you're meeting with us, you don't have to be polished. You can tell us, like, I don't know what I want to do, or I'm having trouble deciding between these things. But if you can come with a good understanding of your goals or be able to talk through your experiences, it makes your meetings with people at Penn much easier and more fruitful. So if you do the homework of self-exploration and self-reflection, you'll get a lot more out of your meetings with people. That's just sort of a pitch to have everyone infuse more self-reflection into your lives. So here is my very simple pitch outline. I'm going to hide my thumbnail again, just in case I'm cutting this off. So number one, you want to start with an introduction. So your name, your degree program, and your graduation date. These things are the most relevant if you're talking to an employer. Oh, I should say this pitch outline is assuming that you're in the highest stakes conversation where you're talking to an employer. Then you want to give them a high level summary of your key experiences. These experiences are relevant to the role that you're applying for or the organization that you're in communication with. Usually I say you can give a detailed explanation of one single experience that showcases 2 to 3 skills that sort of talk about the specifics that they're needing. So you're saying, hi, my name's Emily. I am currently a master's in computer and information technology student. I graduate in December of 2022. I've had all different kinds of experiences through web application design and working with different APIs. But one thing that I'm really proud of is when I worked on a project with some friends to create a mobile app used to scrape different instances of COVID-19 on Twitter. I got to learn how to use XAPI and I programmed it using Java, and it was just really fulfilling. Then you want to talk about at the end why a particular company or position is of interest to you. So the first 75% of your pitch is all about yourself and your background, but then your last moment is transitioning into your future. And you say, I'm just so happy I got to meet you at this conference, or I'm so happy that I was given the opportunity to have this conversation with your team because I am really interested in working in XYZ, blah, blah, blah. If you're having trouble coming up with that, usually you have to do a little bit more employer research to understand the organization that you're actually talking with. But this is just sort of the outline to say, this is how you do an overall pitch. And then finally, you want to end with a question. So in order to continue the conversation. So my next slide is all about asking good questions. So don't ask a question that can be answered with a quick Google or by going on their website. This is sort of their nightmare. Instead, research the company organization when you have the opportunity to do so. I like to ask about trends or current events because that showcases that you really went deep on a company's website or looking through different archives of their company, or you just pay attention and showcases that you're interested in trends. You're proactive, and that's something employers are always looking for. You can ask about company practices. So like for the full stack developer roles, I know that some interviewers really like when you ask questions about their stack, or you can ask questions about their testing processes or their modeling techniques. Whatever it is, sometimes being direct and trying to get to know more about how the company does something, again, showcases initiative and true curiosity. It's always a good opportunity to clarify job responsibilities if you are in an interview setting. So if there's something that you're uncertain about, you can always clear that up in the interview. And then finally, you can always, overall, when you're trying to come up with a good question, you're trying to set the answerer up to draw from their experiences and expertise. So you don't want to ask a question that they're not going to know the answer to. You're not trying to stump your interviewer. That's usually not a good career move. So make sure that you're trying to base it on the person who you're talking to, what their actual scope and knowledge is. So that is the end of me talking at you with slides, but I would love to hear everyone's questions. I have a chat now. I'm going to stop the share and just have our chat here. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions about anything I said? Job search, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn? Ooh, how to book a meeting with me. So if you are an MCIT online student, all you have to do is send me an email and I'll give you my appointment link. For all other students, you have to book career appointments with Career Services. They are your career counselors, and you can find them through Handshake. Other questions? While I have the moment, I will I will again sort of celebrate the expertise that you have across Penn. Always get a second set of eyes on a resume objective, a LinkedIn profile, a cover letter, whatever it is. Having a second set of eyes to review it and make sure it's perfect before hitting submit is always a good idea. Do you recommend having a customized resume for different jobs? For example, software engineering versus data engineer. Software engineering versus data engineer, I feel like is close enough that you don't have to customize a resume too much between those two things. You will be customizing a cover letter for those roles though. I had said this earlier, but in my follow-up email to everyone who signed in, does a resume have to be one page? I'll answer that in 1 second. So if you haven't had a chance, please sign in. And I will follow up with a recording of this session. And then we try and collect sample resumes from our students to then, so that you all can then use them as samples. And then we put them in a resume bank archive. I'll make sure that everyone has access to that folder. It's a Google folder. So I'll make sure that everyone has access to that so that you can look through samples that students have shared in the past. We're always looking for new samples. So if you have one, you can feel free to email me or Tori. Tori Frew helps coordinate that as well. Do resumes have to be one page? Yes and no. So in general, the reason we say try and keep it to one page is because recruiters do not have the time to go through multiple pages. They only spend like 7 seconds on a resume. I've heard 10 seconds, 7 seconds, 3 seconds. I don't think anyone can review a resume in 3 seconds. So I think that's a little crazy. But we do know that they're not on it they're not looking at it that much. If you go onto a second page, the content of that second page is definitely reduced in whose eyes are going to be on it. So you want to try and keep it to one. However, if you've had 10 plus years of experience and maybe across different industries, you might end up bleeding onto a second page. So overall, we try and say, yes, try and keep it to one. But if you're working with me or career services, sometimes we'll be like, oh my gosh, your experiences are so rich, so relevant that yes, we're going to be bleeding onto a second page, but the story is important enough that the person will probably want to keep reading to see it. If there are multiple and different roles in the same company, what should I do to customize my cover letter? So if it's different roles, your cover letter is totally different because the job postings are different. So the themes of your body paragraphs are pulling from different job requirements through the different roles. So your cover letter will always be different. Your resume might just have a few little changes here or there. If you can change if you can rearrange the bullet points in a project or experience to be so that the most relevant is near the top, or if you have to tell a different story based on an experience so that it matches a job a little bit better, that's a good thing to do as well. But I would say that your resume is going to change just in small little tweaks, and your cover letter should be changing completely. At least your 2 or 3 body paragraphs are going to be different. I haven't got a portfolio because besides LinkedIn, but I do have a YouTube channel with some demos of my previous projects. So I include this link when applying for a job where I'm supposed to post a portfolio link. Yes, I think that's a great idea. As long as your YouTube channel is you're like happy with how it looks and you have beautiful descriptions of everything. If it is put together, then yes, definitely feel free to send it that way. You might also, though, consider looking at different portfolio websites or GitHub, depending on what you're doing, just because those are a little bit more standard and employers might be looking for that. But I think it's cool that you have a YouTube and it might make you stand out. Okay, so if I'm trying to apply for data science roles, would you customize it differently from a resume targeting a software engineering role? Yes, I would. At least one of I think like software engineering and data science are different enough that at least one of your body paragraphs is going to be different between the cover letter. When it comes to resume, I think that you'll even reorder your skills section. You have all these skills between software engineering and data science. You might bump a few of your skills up near the front of your section header and move a few back, and you might decide to rearrange how you're doing a project here or there. Very small, but still important. Boop, boop. Okay, so will an HR or hiring manager think I'm all over the place if I apply to different positions within the same company? From what I understand, no. Many, especially if you're applying to like a large scale company like Facebook, a lot of times they don't judge that because it happens so often. I will say that they do have sometimes limits to the number of job applications you can submit to a company at once. So you want to make sure that you are applying to certain roles in a certain way. Similarly, if your roles are like very, very different, then you might want to rethink about doing that. So if you're applying for a software engineering role and a data engineering role, again, those things are close enough. We'll even add data science in there. We can assume that your interests are truly among those three opportunities. If you're all of a sudden throwing in something very random, like finance bursar or something, don't do that. So feel free to apply to different jobs within the same company. You shouldn't have too much fear of HR judging you. Really what you're doing is they are then siphoning your application material to different teams who are then reviewing you, and then they'll do a lot of times they'll do a phone screen and say, oh, I see that you've submitted positions to these 3 teams. Can you tell me about that? So just be prepared to answer why you submitted so many different applications. And the answer can't be, oh, I just really want to work at Facebook. That will have been a mistake. Okay, let's see. Most of my repos on my GitHub are private. There's not a lot of public repos for the recruiters. Should I still include my GitHub link on the application? So if I would say if you are going full into your job application and you only have one public thing on your GitHub, then it's not worth sharing it with a recruiter. But something you might want to do is work on a few things so that you can have more public facing GitHubs. Something that's so important for students to understand is project work is so important, especially if you're applying for technical roles, because employers really need to see the application of your technical skills to real life things. So make sure that you are building in time throughout your master's program to work on things that you can showcase. If you only have one thing that's public, I still say put your GitHub on your resume because employers want to see that you have it. But the chance that you're taking there is if they bother to look at your GitHub and they only see one thing, they might sort of they might think less of you as a candidate. The other side of that coin is I don't know how much recruiters are actually looking at your GitHub. They don't have time to even look at your resume. Rarely are they going to be reviewing your GitHub. So a lot of times it'll be people who are actually on the technical team who might be looking through your repositories. And then at that point, you've already talked to that person and you can talk through some of the projects that you've worked on. Do we have a spring career fair for MCIT online? No, we do not. How differently should we pitch ourselves in a career fair versus a regular setting? I think that your pitch is sort of all the same. So I think that everyone should practice a pitch that that does 3 things: introduces yourself, talks about your past skills and experiences, and talks about what you want in the future. No matter where you are and in what setting, if you have an employer or recruiter chatting with you, you should be able to recite that pitch. Is it better to have a resume that contains as much info as possible, or is it better to maintain sparsity to make it easier to skim? The goal of a resume is never as much information as possible. It is highly targeted, curated stories that match the job that you're applying for. And you don't want to make it easy to skim per se, but you want it to be readable. That's the word that we use. You really want your resume to be readable. You do that by utilizing bold headings, Balancing white space. So the parts of your document that don't have text on them, that's called your white space. You want to have plenty of areas where that's happening so that someone's eyes can have a break and they can easily see differences in your paragraphs and bullet points. Using bullet points is key to making a resume easily readable. Other questions? All right. I am not getting questions in, but if you're typing them out, feel free to hit send. Can I share the link to the resume repository? I'm going to include it in my follow-up email. Yes. The slides will be, I don't share the slides, I share the recording. If you want the slides in particular, just send me an email. Let me send everyone my email so that you have it. But a recording of the session will be in a shared Google folder that all CS Master's students have access to, and then on the MCIT Online playlist. Okay, and then I will send an email to in my email to all of you with the recording link. I'll include the resume repository. If you have a resume, email it to me and we'll include it in there. Sharing is caring, everyone. All right, well, it was great being with everyone this evening. I hope you have a great night or morning, wherever you're joining me from. And thank you so much. Bye, everyone.